This episode of The Body Serve is brought to you by Health IQ, an insurance agency that helps health-conscious people like runners, vegans, weightlifters, and you guessed it, tennis players, get lower rates on life insurance. Go to healthiq.com/bodyserve or mention the promo code BODYSERVE when speaking with an agent to support the show and see if you qualify.
But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Well, hello there. Welcome back.
It's been, 3 days?
Yep. This is The Body Serve. Thanks for tuning in. I'm James. And you are?
I'm Jonathan, and we clearly just want to overwhelm you so that you just never listen to us ever again.
It's going to be quantity over quality from now on.
We're back because it's the draw ceremony, draw release episode previewing the Australian Open.
Yeah, you got there. Yeah, it's the Australian Open preview.
Oh, you just finished talking to me about brevity and about how we need to be more concise this episode.
Exactly.
And I called bullshit on you because it's like, now that you're going to have to be editing this episode, you're concerned about a 90-minute episode.
Yeah, so no mistakes, and we're going to get through it fast. Okay, now you stayed up really, really late here to watch the Australian Open draw ceremony, if you can call it that. And I woke up and it turns out I missed a whole hell of a lot.
You did miss a whole hell of a lot. It wasn't an oppressive time for me to stay up. I'm typically up at that time anyway, but by the end of it, having not bargained for an hour and a half, it was oppressive. It really was.
Now, they didn't actually do the draw live, right?
No.
So it had already been done and they just put it up on a screen, or?
I'm new to the whole draw ceremony thing. I'm typically working, or it doesn't fit my schedule. I'm not usually around for it. Australia might be the only one that I'm able to pay attention to most years. And even then, I don't really remember from year to year. This time around, I was caught totally off guard. Apparently, it's been a trend. I saw people talking about it, that it's become more of a draw reveal rather than a draw ceremony, which, as I said, caught me off guard. Okay. I'm sitting there, and they have, I don't even know who the host was. He's there talking, and then he says, and then welcome your defending champion, Roger Federer. And out comes Roger, dressed in this gorgeous green shirt. He looked really good. I'm not one to typically find Federer good looking, but he was well dressed, and I just loved that shade of green. And he had Norman with him, the trophy that he named from last year.
Appropriately.
And so they go through this Q&A thing, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, this could go on forever because Federer speaks in paragraphs. Federer loves to hear his voice.
He sure do.
He's earned the right to love to hear his voice, frankly, right? It is what it is. Federer talks a lot. He gives long-winded, thoughtful answers. And if you ask him to reflect on his year, starting with the Australian Open last year, it's gonna go on a while. That's just the way it is. And so 15 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, and I'm like, okay, so Federer is here talking about himself. What are they gonna do for Maria? Like, what are these questions going to be? How was your year? How was it coming back from a doping suspension? How many pills did you actually pop on this court 2 years ago? What are the questions that are going to be asked that factor into the actual ban and her time away from the tour?
Yeah.
Forget about politicizing it and how you feel about it. I just thought it incredulous that they could have her come on and just shoot the shit, pretty much.
Is that what they did?
That's exactly what it was. Now, asking about her time away. Before we get to that, though.
Tell me...
I'm also sitting there, and I'm starting to see tennis journalists tweet, I think the draw may be going on. Here's a picture of somebody sitting on the court with their screen up, and this looks like a bracket, and looks like Rafa is here playing so-and-so, but I don't know if this is true. We'll just have to wait.
What?
So, I'm like, what in the actual fuck is going on? because we are here for the draw. We're not here to have a sit down with Roger Federer and Maria Sharapova just ramble on about themselves and their lives.
Right.
But they've turned this whole draw ceremony into this big production where it's produced for TV, presumably in Australia.
Right, but where was the actual draw? Like, it was going on simultaneously, but it wasn't being shown?
Correct. Or I don't know if it was made before the telecast even started.
Oh, okay.
And it was just available on somebody's screen. But by the time Federer is getting toward the end of his little spiel, it for sure is already done.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's being officially tweeted out. Well, unofficially tweeted out by... like Ben Rothenberg was tweeting out all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So for a good 15 to 30 minutes, you don't know what to make of what. What is real, what the context for any of these things are. You can't see anything, no draws, no nothing. You're just saying, oh, well, this is a good first round matchup. You're like, well, is this actually what's happening? And then so Federer gets done and they say, welcome Maria Sharapova. And like, oh, you know, that's a Sharapovian outfit. She was wearing the blouse, like the business casual, flowy, silky-ish blouse with like pants.
Yeah, like her Ivanka look.
Yeah, it's her aesthetic. You know, she does that. That and the granny dress.
Yeah.
And it took me a moment, and then I was like, oh, she's holding Serena's trophy. She is bringing Serena's trophy onto the court. And obviously, like if I'd seen Roger bring the men's trophy out on the court, it should have occurred to me that Maria would be bringing the women's trophy onto the court in all likelihood. But seeing it was jarring.
She was holding Daphne. She brought out
Yeah,
Daphne.
she brought Daphne to the court.
I woke up to that and I was like, Twitter, goodbye. Away with you. I'm very busy this week and I cannot be bothered to be upset about this right now. But what bad taste. The thing, like the Australian Open is usually, it's called the Happy Slam for a reason, right? They usually do this stuff pretty well. The fan experience, it just seems laid back, positive. The social media is always on point. The app is usually pretty good. And I feel like just a lot of things have not been working very well. It's a kind of a bad omen for the beginning of this tournament. The thing with the choice of Sharapova we talked about last time, it was like, okay, that's kind of in bad taste. And then they went and made it worse, right?
Fine, you choose her. And we accepted on the last episode that, okay, we're not that mad about it. Like, this is more a reflection of a distasteful choice by the tournament. They could have gone in a totally different direction and made a better choice. Mm-hmm. But we're not here to attack Maria, right?
Oh, we're not?
Well, we said that.
I'm
you
kidding.
concurred.
I know.
This was not about Maria.
Yeah.
For the most part.
It's not fun anymore.
To what?
Attacking Maria.
Oh my God.
They've sucked all the fun out of it.
I don't know what we thought. Because it should have been clear that she'd be in the vicinity of the trophy at some point.
But holding it. I mean, the thing that is amusing to me is like the super Maria stans who are like, they had literally no choice. Tennis Australia had to choose her, so shut your damn mouth.
This idea that it was a totally
what?
reasonable decision and stop being stupid.
Well, not only that, but that they were handcuffed. They have to pick a defending champion and Angie is out of town. Like, what? Oh, is that written in Australian law? I mean, as a fan, I'm sure I have said things that some of you think is stupid and biased. But
you say things I think are stupid all the time.
Right, but like you all have to acknowledge that is a dumbass thing to say. Like Tennis Australia can choose whoever they damn well please.
We said
to
this.
present
They
the
could
trophy.
have brought out Destiny Ayava to do it.
They could have chosen a kangaroo, for fuck's sake. Like
the Quokka has been doing everything.
Exactly.
He's been doing the most in the lead up to the Australian Open.
Clearly, I don't need a lecture about capitalism and about the economical power.
The abstract economical power that Maria Sharapova would give to a tournament and a fucking draw ceremony.
I am waiting to see the numbers because you all quote them just so confidently. But yes, I believe that Maria is a star.
If you're being upfront and say, well, we are putting her there to have her bring Serena's trophy out, and you will be on your seats glued with your popcorn, and those ratings will soar through the roof.
Right.
Like,
Right.
if that's what you're coming with, I see you. I see that. I accept that. Like, if you want to be that shady and ballsy and Aretha about it, then
Hate Retha.
then more power to you. But, like, let's not pretend.
I think that's my issue, and it has been for a long time with this whole thing. Like, Maria is back. It's over. The wild card drama is over. We're happy it's done. We're not talking about it anymore. But, like, why are the tennis powers that be walking around as if nothing happened? And Billie Jean King, for example, saying that, I don't get it. Everybody should get over it. And that's easy for her to say, but, like, Billie Jean was over it, like, 2 days after the positive test. No, really. Like, Billie Jean was a very strong supporter of Maria throughout the entire ordeal. And I agree, yes, she served her time. Yeah, that's kind of like something I believe very, very strongly in people who have been to prison. Like, she didn't go to prison, obviously.
No, she went and did multiple 2-day internships. One
Right.
for Adam Silver in the NBA.
Yeah.
That
Okay,
was
cool.
fascinating to learn about in her year of taking time off.
Is she the one who claims that she got into Harvard? Because she spent a day at Harvard Business School?
I do not
Like,
have access to those
Famous
receipts.
people need to stop pretending that they got into really difficult schools to get into because they did a conference on campus.
I feel like you're opening yourself up to a lot of rage
I am,
and credibility issues of the show.
But let's talk about Billie Jean because...
No, before we get into that, I'm not done with Maria.
All right.
So the sum part of this whole visual fiasco is you have Maria Sharapova in Serena's stead, because this is the job of the defending champion, bringing Serena's trophy onto the court. Mm-hmm. The same court that was the site of the last ingestion of meldonium.
And we know it was a double dose.
We know.
It's in legal documents.
You can't make this shit up. And it's like, you know that meme where the black girl is coming on to Ellen or Oprah and she opens the door and it's like, hey! It's like, well, that's Maria, but in her pinstripe pantsuit. And nobody's asking for it.
Well, apparently a lot of people are asking for it, and they're paying for it too.
Oh my God. And so that happens, she sits down, and it's just a run-of-the-mill conversation about how you spent your year and all the time off and what you did, how difficult it was, and what were some of the struggles and the this and the that. It was, I mean, if you were in charge of a city's sanitation, this would be your ideal. It was so sanitized.
Oh, I thought because they were like shoveling shit. No, the thing that annoys me about this and has for a long time is the fakeness. This, oh my God, so you haven't played here in 2 years. We're not going to say why. So how have you been? This talk show bullshit. It just makes tennis look stupid and silly.
We're not going to say why because it's really not relevant. You're back and we're happy to have you back. And
like, but look at the sports who did not take this seriously.
I feel like that's going way too meta in terms of what's going on, because the suspension itself was fraught. There were many issues surrounding it. It's not enough to say one way or the other definitively, good or bad, what happened, right? But there is still a way as a presenter and an interviewer and a journalist in any situation.
Well, they don't hire journalists to do these things.
It doesn't matter. My point is it's very simple.
Yeah.
Hell, you and I could do it easily. If somebody comes to us and says, well, hey, you're going to do this thing, but, you just say, well, we're going to say, well, how does it feel to be back here, the site of so-and-so and so? What are your feelings about that? It's so simple. You can get that out of the way and then move on to talking about your internships.
No, but you would never get the job if you were even someone who had a reputation for asking honest questions. You just wouldn't get that job.
It doesn't even have to be hard-hitting. Just acknowledge it, right? It makes the whole thing such a farce.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds silly. The whole sport sounds silly because of it. So I want to talk about Billie Jean because So I mentioned that she said, she doesn't understand the whole hullabaloo about Maria, that she served a time, she's back, let her play, which I agree. I think that Billie Jean, women's tennis is her life's work, right? The WTA is something that she and a bunch of other women built by hand, fought and clawed for, sacrificed a lot. So her investment in the flourishing and kind of the financial success as well of women's tennis is huge.
Or even just its survival.
Yes. So I think that, I don't know how to say this, because I respect and adore Billie Jean so much for what she's done, but even our heroes can be wrong, right?
Yeah.
I think that...
we've been through Venus and All Lives Matter. We know this.
Yeah. So Billie Jean's single-minded dedication to women's tennis's survival has, I think, allowed her to say some misguided things, in my opinion. So one of them is not even kind of waiting a beat and defending Maria from the jump. And the other thing is lobbying for Margaret Court Arena, which she did, because she felt that Margaret was such a great champion that she, like Rod Laver, deserved a court named after her. So there's obviously an argument for that, because Margaret Court is the most decorated tennis player, really, in history.
Okay, we need to put some timelines in place here, and also introduce the Twitter work of Frith, Miss Plucky Loser. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the naming of Margaret Court Arena, which happened in 2003. So you're saying, and this is a point that Frith brought out on Twitter, that yes, Billie Jean is now out here crusading for Margaret's name to be taken off of it, but she was very much instrumental in having it named after her in the first place.
Yes, and to be fair, in her statement, Billie Jean herself said, I lobbied for this court to be named after Margaret Court, and now, I basically regret that decision, or I think it's not right.
She says, I have a long history with Margaret Court, and when the arena that bears her name was first planned, I fought hard for her to be recognized for her tennis accomplishments. Recently, she has made statements about our LGBTQI, or she has it written here, LGBTIQ community, that crossed the line. Having a stadium or a tennis facility named after you comes with responsibility, including a responsibility to be welcoming and hospitable to all people. We are all God's children.
I mean, Billie Jean is, especially as she's gotten older, very down the line, pretty mainstream, inoffensive liberal, right? There's nothing really radical about Billie Jean's politics, which I feel like is also the fate of people when they get older, right?
And when they become the aged figurehead of a movement.
Exactly. So, yes, I applaud Billie Jean for acknowledging, yes, I fought hard for the stadium to be named after Margaret, and now I don't think that she's saying she was wrong at the time, but she's changed her mind, basically. Mm-hmm. But she's known Margaret Court for 50 years, right? She knew who she was. She knew about her pro-apartheid views, her racist views for many, many years. I'm sure she heard the comments from Margaret about lesbians back when those things were barely ever said in polite company in the 60s.
Margaret's book would have come out 30, 40 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So that stuff is in record about the apartheid stuff.
So I kind of want to know what changed. Because, for example, Billie Jean was not always a great advocate for LGBTQ rights. She was out in the early 80s. She didn't really come out until the late 90s.
What changed? What do you mean?
What changed?
Within Billie Jean?
Yeah. Why does she take issue with what Margaret said now and didn't then?
Because it's a totally different time.
It is.
15 years. It's a totally different time. And it's also in a very specific time and place in Australian political history, because they have just passed marriage equality. LGBT rights are now in Australia. And in 2003, even in the States, I remember I was starting as a freshman in 2003 in the United States, and it was unfathomable to me that the U.S. would have gay marriage at that time. Yeah, so my point in saying that 2003, I imagine the benefit of having a visible woman on the name of a court that big would have been more important or more of a trump card than imagining that her beliefs would come and play a negating factor at some point.
Right.
Like that would have been the greater evil.
Or to think that we would be in a place in kind of the Western world that people would actually give a shit.
Yeah.
I think at that time, Billie Jean was probably in a weird position because if you see a stadium being named after a great male champion and there's sort of a glaring omission, you know, if a stadium of the U.S. Open were named after Bill Tilden or Pete Sampras or Jimmy Connors and not someone like Billie Jean or Martina or, you know.
And there was a pecking order.
Like, that's an omission.
There
right?
was a pecking order. You name it Rod Laver Arena, the female equivalent is Margaret Court.
Right.
We want to see Yvonne Goolagong now in Margaret's stead.
Yes.
But when you're making that argument in 2003 to have a woman headline that court, you go to her as a natural choice.
You pick the record holder for everything, right?
And
this is kind of the pitfall of representation only. You know, when representation is the only thing that matters, you get people like Margaret Court, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell.
Yeah.
You know?
And so the argument
Sarah
that you're
Palin.
making is that everybody knew what she was and what she stood for back then.
Yes. Fewer people cared.
And so
That's my point.
what is it that you want to say or want to have happen? You want Billie to be more specific and take more ownership of her role in this?
No. I don't need her to do anything, really.
You just want to point it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's something worth talking about. It should be out there. I asked Frith before we recorded if I could reference what she tweeted because she sort of shone a light on a lot of these facts that...
The minutiae of
Yeah.
this situation that's being lost in the journalistic bubble, shall we say.
Right. Because, you know, she mentioned, well, MCA is not actually owned by Tennis Australia. They don't have the power to change the name. And I was like, oh, shit. I did not know that. And I've probably misspoke before because of that. And she's right, obviously. It's owned by Melbourne and Olympic Parks. So it is actually owned by the government, basically.
You should have seen the two of us. I came home from work, and I'm getting myself ready for this episode, working on the agenda. He's doing the same. I'm at the kitchen table, he's at the couch. I'm having dinner doing it, and we are both, after getting caught up on Twitter, DMing Frith. Separately. She must have been like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Thanks for dealing with us. But
we're both asking the same thing, permission to talk about it on the show.
Because her tweets were prompted by, obviously, journalists are now asking players, because this is news, about Margaret Court Arena, about possible boycotts, and...
It's something that was speculated about for months now.
Yes, but what's been coming up, apparently, which to me is a very facile question, would you play on Margaret Court Arena? What is the correct answer to that? The correct answer is that a realistic choice? Does a player have the the option to refuse to play on a major court at a Grand Slam? I don't think so.
Are you then saying everybody requests, if everybody takes that stance, do they all just line up to play on Hisense and Rod Laver Arena and that's it? Or do you then boycott the tournament, as Frith pointed out on Twitter as well?
Which is not going to happen. Nor do I think it should happen.
And this is where I am in my life in general. This is the, what do you call it? The side of the line, the part of the sword that you fall on.
Fence.
Fence, yes, the fence.
Falling on your sword. You have all these metaphors kicking around in your brain.
This is the side of the fence that I fall on, in that we should always hold institutions to the fire more so than we do individual people in these situations. It's the same reason why people want to, this might be a little bit fraught for people, but when minimum wage issues come up and they talk about, oh, well, businesses are going to go down the shitter, they're going to go bankrupt, they're going to have to close their doors the next day, what are the small businesses practices ahead of time in preparation for these increases? We tend to vilify and demean and expect more of individuals, when in fact corporations and institutions and businesses, they get away with murder. You know, like they get to be treated as a person for tax and voting purposes, but then when it comes to being accountable for anything, they're abstract.
Well, that's actually one of the reasons corporations are such an incredibly useful entity, is that it's the complete removal of accountability. Because who do you blame?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a lot of people just doing their jobs.
And so now we are asking these players, have you thought about not playing? Mm-hmm. Or saying you will not play on Margaret Court Arena? And what is the purpose of that question?
I want to know what the right answer is. So let's say you're a player who's not seeded. You have very, very few opportunities to make this much money. This is about your career. It's about survival. It's about funding the rest of your year. And journalists know that.
Well, to be fair, they're not the ones being asked.
Okay.
Because
if you're a star, are you going to sacrifice a Grand Slam because you don't want to play on Margaret Court Arena? And if you do, does that make you a hero? And the other thing is that, will that affect change in a real way? Because the Australian Open doesn't have the power to change the name of the arena. It's used by other sports organizations, by concerts, entertainment, everything. So I think a thing we should mention is that Tennis Australia has not actually made a recommendation to the owners of the arena to change the name, which is something they could do.
They don't have the power to do it, but they could lead the charge and at least make the case.
They could
agitate.
Exactly, which they have not done, which is fine. I'll acknowledge that. But I'm generally skeptical of boycotts in general, and I don't want to get into why that is. We can talk about it in DMs.
It was one of the main tenets of your master's thesis.
It was. I just think that as journalists, we can do better than asking questions, would you boycott MCA? It's not interesting, and it doesn't elicit good answers.
But listen, what it really boils down to is that's a story that's been written about Margaret Court, and it's to get a few quotes to put in that article.
I agree.
That's what it is.
But it's simplistic.
I'm not going to disagree with you with that. The issue itself is, we could go on and on and on about this. I don't think,
We won't.
There's an argument to be made that surviving as a tennis journalist is hard enough as it is already. And so picking your stories to write it's a bit unfair to have that transcript presented right away to see that potentially you're asking that same question to every athlete. And then it reads like, who is this idiot? Why is this question being asked? When in fact there's a story that's being worked on that we don't know what it's about. There's that element of it too. I don't want to be too unfair to that. But as a player, is that really a question that you need to be asked in that moment, giving your press availability as a top seed ahead of the tournament?
Yeah.
And also,
what I see?
It's also a shortcut way to get that story as well, because you could also do one-on-ones, like find other sources and what have you. I mean, it's a complex situation.
Why don't we ease on down the road from Margaret Court? You know, she's not here at this Australian Open. Finally, we have a tournament without having to see her, and we're talking about her.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
But all the credit in the world to Frith. If you do not follow her, I say this all the time. I've said it multiple times. Every year when she's covering Brisbane on site, Frith is one of the no-brainer good follows on tennis Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Her handle is @PluckyLoser, and enrich yourself. One quick reach around or reach back.
That's not how you say that. That's not what that means.
Let's go back a little bit. I'm not sure I was totally clear about my point with regards to putting the onus on the players and giving that example of minimum wage hikes and what have you. My point in saying that is, set aside the journalistic aspect of this and whether you're questioning the reasons for or why it's being asked, if it could be asked a different way. If we're looking at it through the lens of, well, are we expecting these players to be agitating to cause and effect change of the naming of this court? They're not the ones. My argument is that they're not the ones that we should be looking to for this to happen. We should be putting the onus on
the employer.
Yeah, the
right?
owner.
The institution.
Tennis Australia, who, although they can't implement the change, can agitate, which we said, and also higher up the ladder, as Frith pointed out to us, that's owned by Melbourne and Olympic Parks.
I always look at this stuff from an HR perspective because that's what I do in my real job, in Canada, which is important because I see the relationship between employee and employer as unequal. Right, the employee is always at a disadvantage. They take more risk. They need to be protected more than the company itself. And so that's kind of how I see it in this situation.
And employers always pass on the added costs onto the employees.
Exactly.
Let's give a shout out to our sponsor, shall we? It's that time of the show.
So Health IQ is a life insurance agency.
Yes.
They work with a bunch of different insurers, only with A or A+ rated insurance carriers. Their thing is they are geared toward health conscious people, right? They're trying to get you a better rate on your life insurance.
And how many times with insurance you feel like you're doing all the things by the book and you should, and you feel like you're still not getting the rates that you deserve.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is where this comes in with Health IQ. You go, you take their quiz, which is geared to identify the folks who are really health conscious and take care of their bodies. And then you get access to these special rates.
The cool thing is an agent will take you through the entire journey. It's not like, you don't put in your information, they spit out a quote. They'll take you through the very first
interaction.
Yep. Through the application, through the underwriting process, and then through the actual policy. So you're never alone in the process. You're not talking to a computer, right?
It's a more personal approach to life insurance.
So to see if you qualify, get your free quote at healthiq.com/bodyserve or mention our promo code BODYSERVE when you talk to an agent.
And remember, by going through this process, you are not only helping yourself and your loved ones when you die, but you are also helping the show.
More importantly. Thanks. So what we're really here for is to preview the Australian Open draws, right? I remember we didn't really do a draw analysis or preview for the US Open in our preview episode, and actually someone was like, I don't know why you guys didn't do a draw analysis. I wish you had. And I was shocked because I didn't realize anyone actually valued our insights in that area.
Well, I guess we're at a point now, having done this a while, where we know that minute, detailed analysis of the draw round to round matters shit all.
It does.
In the grand scheme of things.
For me, I've always just felt that other people were better equipped to do it. The people that follow the smaller tournaments much closer and can just remember this kind of stuff because they do it as a career.
We used to fill out the draws and have competitions within our household as to who would have the better result, right? We'd score them round by round, and we haven't done that in a good couple of years now at this point because it just felt useless.
Well, our scores were like so close, and it didn't seem like any actual skill went into whoever won. We would split most of them.
And anyway. So even though we each have a set of draws printed out, and we haven't written anything past the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I'm just putting in who the seeds are and
because it's a total crapshoot.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with the women's draw. Again, we have a major without Serena, without a dominant champion. The story of this women's draw is there are a lot of very exciting potential matchups. There's a lot of we don't know what's going to happen.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because it brings me back to something I missed in my analysis, as it were, of the draw ceremony. This thing went on for an hour and a half. It went on for an hour and a half, and they had Federer out there for how long? And then when they finally, you had asked, when did they actually present the draws? After Sharapova was done, then they came back and revealed the men's draw and did some analysis with their panel of all men. And then when they came back again from commercial break to reveal the women's draw, they subbed somebody out, kept Todd Woodbridge, and brought in Cara Black. So there was one woman, that was a sum total of women's analysis of the draw in this big produced spectacle, right? And on top of that, if you were to clock it in terms of the amount of time spent discussing men's tennis and women's tennis, it would be like 3-1.
Yeah, and
that's a generous
there's a lot
allotment
going on in women's tennis, in this draw specifically. Let's start with the very first quarter. Simona Halep is the number 1 seed, is leading off the draw, and look at this quarter. Just in her section, she has to get through Kvitova. There's Barty, Osaka, Vesnina, and then the other seeds are Konta and Pliskova. This is not an easy quarter at all. Whoever gets through to the semis in this section is going to have a hell of a fight.
Halep draws Destiniayeva first off, and then potentially, if Bouchard can somehow manage to win a match against Ocean Dodin in her first round, it'll be Halep Bouchard in the second round, and then Halep Petra in the third round. Picture that. Simona Halep,
Right.
Petra Kvitova in the third round. And then...
It doesn't get better from there.
No, because right below that, we potentially have Ash Barty, who unfortunately draws Sabalenka in the first round.
Look at Ash Barty's little section. Just her path to the third round. Because if she gets through Sabalenka, Camila Giorgi was on a tear this week. Beat a few big players.
Before Kerber put her down.
There's Naomi Osaka, who's working with Big Sasha, and Vesnina is the other seed. But I personally, if I'm Ash Barty, I'm looking at the first round and no further.
Yeah.
Because Sabalenka is one of these players who's up and coming. She has confidence. She did lose quite meekly to Tsurenko this week, 6-1, 6-1. But you really couldn't ask for harder unseeded players to face right now.
Sabalenka has a whole lot of game. Somebody tweeted us and asked us what we thought about her ceiling and what have you. We haven't seen that much of her. I watched her a bit this week. And the one thing I will say is that she has, if a virus morphs and metastasizes into some kind of super virus, that's what her grunt is.
Oh, I was really horrified.
It was.
Because it's not just the grunt, it's when it happens.
Yes. It's
it's very, very clearly gamesmanship to me.
The clearest form of gamesmanship that we've seen from a grunt.
It's a hindrance, and I cannot believe that it's allowed to continue.
Yeah.
It's well after the ball is struck.
But as far as Barty is concerned, I selfishly would love to see a third round with Barty and Osaka. Two young women who are potentially the face and the future of the WTA Tour, who've both appeared on the Body Serve tennis podcast.
Wow, that's true, isn't it?
And then in the other section below that, so say Halep gets through that little mini section there and she's in the quarterfinals. Her quarterfinal opponent will likely come from one of Konta, Stritsova, Shavashova, or Pliskova.
Right, so you have the big Czech contingent down there, the Fed Cup team, Joanna Konta, who, she's made a semi here, she's beat Venus here, she plays really well in Australia. She claims that...
She's one of the best hardcourt players on the WTA Tour.
But the past few years in Australia specifically have been really impressive. Last year she was stopped by Serena, but she was looking fearsome. You remember that? She had kind of an injury scare last week, and then she lost to Radwanska this week. But she says she's fine. She's good to compete. Michael Joyce is out here saying she's getting close to Sharapova's level, because he knows, because he goes Sharapova. So between Konta and Pliskova, I have no idea who's going to make the quarters, if either of them. If Simona Halep is really feeling herself, I don't know, she could get out of that quarter, but it's rough.
But still, a lot of people are looking to her after she won in Shenzhen to do the business. She is the favorite for this tournament, despite what Angelique Kerber is doing currently in Sydney.
Do you think she's the favorite? I disagree.
I do think she is.
Oh, well, we can talk about that. Okay, now let's get into the second quarter here. Muguruza is the number 3 seed, and she got screwed by this draw really bad. Things can fall apart, but there's Radwanska in the third. In the fourth round, it could be either Kerber or Sharapova or Sevastova. That's not great. And she's also nursing an injury she withdrew this week with, I think it was like a thigh injury against Gavrilova.
Yeah, she won her first match and then gave Gavrilova the walkover in the following round, right? Is that how it happened?
Yes.
There's only 2 women here who can feel hard done, realistically, by this draw. Fine. Muguruza in this section, yes. And then also in this section, Kerber. Kerber's playing great right now. You could make the argument that, okay, well, her ranking sucks and that's why she's there. Okay. Muguruza, she is the defending Wimbledon champion. She is the number 3 seed, a stone's throw away from number 1. It sucks to draw Aga in the 3rd round, potentially, and then having to beat either Kerber or Sharapova, potentially in the 4th round. That's a tough draw. But for Sharapova or Aga, like, your result, Sharapova coming back, like, this is where you should be, realistically.
Yeah.
And Radwanska, like, this is where you should be, too. Like, it should be a tough road for you.
As the 26th seed now. It's fallen down quite a lot in the rankings.
We just look at Kerber differently now because she's playing so well.
Yeah.
And we would like to see her go further.
But, I mean, if she's going to get, like, the fire back, a few wins over players of this caliber is maybe what's going to do it for her. Like, that's going to seal the deal, you know.
Well, we thought that that's what she got this week in Sydney. And so maybe that was enough. And then she could then benefit from an easier first few matches because she's played so many matches in the first couple of weeks. So it'll be a little bit more difficult for her, I think, with so many matches already under her belt.
Right. Kiki Mladenovic is still ranked number 11.
Boy, you're just totally intent on just glossing over Sharapova, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because that's a great first round match for her. Lies, not a first round match, second round match potentially. She gets Tatiana Maria in the first round, which is good for her, frankly.
Right.
But then in the second round, she potentially plays Anastasia Sevastova again, the woman who beat her at the US Open.
Yes.
And against whom she played that 3-set thriller in Beijing.
I don't know how that's how is that good news for Sharapova?
I didn't say it's a good. I didn't say it's good news.
I thought you said it was a good match.
No, it's a great match.
Oh, okay.
To watch.
It could be. I mean, it's certainly not pretty, but remember that mess at the US Open?
Oh my god.
I mean, Sevastova is a player who really I love watching her play for her facial expressions and for her grit, especially at majors. So she's not going to back down from that fight at all.
No. This next section now is wide open.
Yeah. Like, if you're Caroline Garcia, you have to be pretty pleased about this.
You are, but then you are also coming back from an injury. There's Mirjana Lucic-Baroni, who hasn't been able to win pretty much anything in the last 8 to 10 months. There's Madison Keys, who also has injury concerns. There's Kiki Mladenovic, who hasn't won any, 13, 14 straight losses.
Yeah.
It's a section where you could see one of the lesser-known players come through.
What about Hev?
Yeah.
Putintseva. Actually, they play in the first round. Shelby Rogers, perhaps.
Sasnovich.
Oh, yeah. Whoever makes it out of, the Muguruza area might have a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
In the quarters. All right. Now we're at Venus.
Do we have to?
Okay. I want to problematize the Venus-Bencic matchup a little bit.
You are such a low-rent, dirty bitch.
What?
Because I was the one who, quote-unquote, problematized this to you in the kitchen.
What are you talking about?
In that, it might not be that bad of a matchup for Venus. Is that where you're going with this?
No, that's not where I was going. Where I was going, that Bencic has been on an absolute tear recently, but she has been playing at the 125 and ITF level. Okay. Like, will it be... I know she's in good form, but will it be a challenge getting to the Venus Williams level?
Okay.
And the thing is, she played in Hopman Cup, and she played quite well, obviously. She helped her Swiss team win. But that is an exhibition. It's different. She was playing some top-level competition, but it is still an exhibition.
She just managed to lose a set to Andrea Petkovic in Kuyong, which not many people have done recently.
Right.
That's unnecessarily shaded toward Andrea because we love her. But it's true.
Unfortunately, it is true.
My point in trying to give a little bit of optimism to Venus fans here is that Venus owns a 4-0 record against Bencic. Bencic, while she does everything a little bit better in terms of pace than Hingis. Like, it's easy to make that comparison, you know,
Right,
like, but
right.
she still doesn't have the supreme firepower.
No.
And I think that's what's helped Venus in that matchup in the past. That said, Bencic is coming in on a roll.
Mhm.
There's no denying that. And the last time they played was 2015. 2015 Venus is not 2017
Right.
Venus.
We both believe that she is a better player
Yes.
than she was then.
And I told you last time that nothing about Venus's first match and her loss to Kerber gave me nightmares. You know, Venus won the first set. She lost her control of her serve in the third set. That's going to be the biggest issue that she'll have against Bencic. Venus will not struggle to break anybody, really, on tour. If she's playing well from the ground.
Right.
That will not be an issue for her. If Venus is able to defend her serve and have a high percentage on her second serve, she should be okay.
Now, what does scare me, though, is the potential of seeing Gerges in the fourth and Svitolina in the quarters.
Yeah.
That's bad.
This is not, I'm not trying to say that she doesn't
Yeah.
have a hell of a draw.
Uh,
It's not cute.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, this is women's tennis these days. You know, you think you've made it out of the rain because you're not playing top seeds, but there are other women on a roll who sometimes are not even seeded. Like I said earlier with Georgie, with Sabalenka, now we have, I mean, Gerges is up to number 12, but still, like, that is a really bad fourth round match for anyone.
Cornet could take out Gerges in the second round. Who knows?
Sure. Right.
There is Gavrilova there as well. She's been playing very well.
Mertens is in the final of Hobart as we speak against Buzarnescu. I think Svitolina is... You know, I've been saying for a long time that I think her time is coming. I don't know if this tournament is it, but she has a really impressive record against basically the entire top 10, and I wouldn't be surprised if she makes it to the final out of this half. There's definitely not a lot standing in her way. The other seed in her section is Peng Shuai. There's Dasha Kazakina. And
she does have potentially Maria Sakkari in the second round.
Uh-huh. And then there's Sloane at the other side. And Sloane, unfortunately, is on a pretty big slide since the U.S. Open. This is 7 matches now that she's lost. For a lot of the time in the fall, she was just injured, like just straight up was playing on an injury.
She just had that Deadspin article come out saying what's going on with Sloane Stephens, which I think
you never want to get one of those.
It's a little bit rude, to be frank.
It sure is.
Like, let the woman enjoy her $3-point-something million. Nobody expected
her
Sloane
new
Stephens.
clothing contract.
No, that's the thing. Nobody expected Sloane Stephens before, say, she made a couple semis leading up to the U.S. Open to do well. And fine, you could say, well, I expect her to have a good tournament.
Yeah.
But nobody could have realistically expected Sloane to win that tournament. And so now for her to come back, I liken it to the Puig effect. It's a matter of tempering expectations. Really.
Yeah.
She's not going to be Serena Williams overnight. She's not going to be Venus Williams overnight.
Okay, so that final, the fourth quarter in the women's draw, we have Ostapenko at the top, Wozniak at the bottom. Ostapenko starts off against a fellow Roland Garros champion, Francesca Schiavone.
You know, that's the matchup that I'm, next to Venus, is probably most upset about.
Yeah.
Because we thought Francesca was retiring, and then we find out that she's not, only because she sends out one of her Facebook messages showing her injury, and she's like, can't wait to come back or something, blah, 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 blah. And then she...
Like, say what?
She only flies to Australia a couple days ago. Give this woman a break.
I know, right?
She's given us so much joy over the years.
I'm just happy to see Francesca at another major. I didn't expect to see her again. This could be her last Australian, but who knows? It also might not be. Silvakova starts against Kanepi, which is just not a great matchup. Kanepi had a big win recently. I can't remember what it was.
What we really mean to say is that this is Caroline Wozniacki's section of the draw.
It really is. I mean, Colleen Vandeweghe is in there, the semifinalist from last year. As
the two-time Slam semifinalist who is misunderstood as being arrogant. God.
Man, ESPNW really needs to do better. Like, they just do.
Realistically, what do you expect them to do? Like, she's one of the top as much as you don't want to hear it, the top U.S. women's tennis players.
Yeah.
And
they have ESPNW has a history.
And
first of all,
she is the top ranked white U.S. women's tennis player. Like, this is what happened.
Is there a ranking for that too?
There is. That's what she is. She is the number one white is right.
I do think she's the number one Trump supporter in the WTA. What's the rankings on that?
American women's tennis, if you are looking at things from the Trumpian side of the world, is beset by too many black women, right?
Right.
And so she is the savior. And so this kind of puff piece, it's par for the course.
It's so uninteresting. It's like, I'm not as arrogant as they say. Why don't you try just being like, yeah, I'm rude. I want to win. You know, maybe I'd have a little respect for her.
You're trying to get me to touch that, and I just won't.
No, it's fine. Bottom line is, I think Wozniacki and Svitolina are kind of, for me, like my leading candidates to not only get out of this half, but to win the tournament. And I know, you shouldn't predict someone to win a major until they have actually won a major. So I'm probably shooting myself in the foot, but I think they are the informed candidates here.
And I think that the winner, if it comes to it, of Cibulkova Vandeweghe will get to the semifinal.
Oh, yeah?
That's what I think, especially if the court is playing fast.
All right. Shall we move on to the men's draw? Okay. So, a lot of you Nadal haters were out here saying that he has an easy draw, which I'll give you that most of the firepower is on the bottom half of the draw. It is a really loaded bottom half of the men's side. However, there's so many unknowns on the bottom half. You have huge names, former champions in Wawrinka and Djokovic on the bottom half, but we don't know what kind of form they're in.
We just found out today, shortly before recording, that Wawrinka had just decided definitively that he was going to play.
Mm-hmm. After practice today, he felt, he's not in the greatest shape, but he can play, which probably means he'll win. Right? Wawrinka wins when you don't predict him to win.
Look, I'm done with having any kind of attachment or feelings or ideas about Nadal and the Australian Open, because there has been entirely too much heartbreak at this tournament.
Right.
Since 2014. And even before then, with the 5-set loss to Djokovic. Mm-hmm. This is I just play it by ear. If it happens, it happens. If he does well, I'm thrilled, but I'm not going to get worked up about it.
Yeah. I mean, I curl up with the 2009 title. I just have to be happy with that. And it's actually one of my favorite kits of his that he's ever worn, too, so it helps. If he wins again, great. But because y'all haters are saying it's easy, I can see where you're coming from. His fourth round would be the pure 1 versus 16 seed, John Isner. John Isner has never beaten Rafa in a sanctioned match, but he did beat Rafa at Laver Cup last year. So I still don't... That's not a real match, obviously. That's more of an exhibition. But the other people standing in his way are Damir Zumor, the German film star, Diego Schwartzman, who played Isner really tough recently. So Schwartzman actually could be Rafa's fourth round opponent. Of course, if Rafa gets there, I don't want to assume that he will make it.
Nadal has Estrella Burgos in the first round before he plays Leonardo Mayer in the second round. If you recall, Mayer was the one who took the first set off of him at the US Open.
Ah, yes. And Borna Coric is in there as well.
That was in the third round, yeah. What could get tricky for Nadal most quickly is a George Jumhur third round. I feel like that Jumhur has been playing really well, and we know Coric can fuck up somebody's life on any given day.
Yeah, Rafa's health was obviously a question. It was swirling, and he asked the organizers of the Australian Open to organize kind of a realistic practice match with Dominic Thiem. I think it was today, either yesterday or today. Mm-hmm. And Rafa won in a super tiebreak. So, he lost the first set in a tiebreak. I think he wanted the conditions to be as real as they could be, like a real match, which I think is encouraging.
Part of the reason why Rafa is probably doing this or did this simulated match with Dominic Thiem was this is the first time that he's coming into a slam without having an official match. And this is something that we've seen talked about. Christopher Cleary was tweeting about it quite a bit over the last day or two. And I imagine that this is the main reason why this happened. Because Rafa wants to at least get the feel of what a real match would be like for him, having not had one leading up into this tournament. His quarterfinal opponent by seed could be Marin Cilic, could also be Ryan Harrison, for how well Harrison is playing, regrettably. Mm-hmm. And then in the bottom half of that top half...
The second quarter.
The second quarter.
Fractions. Remember how you were asking me to add 4/5 plus 2/3?
It was 3/5 plus 1/3. Okay?
Still.
So the second quarter of that half, it's led off by 3 seed Grigor Dimitrov and Jack Sock. Let's start at the bottom. Jack Sock, who is a mess, has such an opportunity.
He sure does, yeah.
To get through to a quarterfinal. And I would be shocked if he does. I'm more inclined to think Kevin Anderson or Luca Pouille will be the one playing in that quarterfinal against, by seed, either Dimitrov or Kyrgios. Dimitrov and Kyrgios could have a repeat of their Brisbane semifinal in the 4th round here in Melbourne.
Okay, let's start at the top. So
just get Tsonga out of the way right away.
I will.
I'm not saying discard him. I'm just saying that's what you're going to talk about.
Well,
first.
Yeah, I practically cried when I saw it. It's horrible. Tsonga's the 15 seed. He does face a qualifier in the first round. Mind you, the qualifying rounds have been delayed, so we actually we're not looking at a draw right now with the actual names for qualifiers in, because it's not done yet. But then he faces the winner of Tsitsipas or Shapovalov, 2 young guys who are like coming into their own, who are breaking out. Why? That's so rude that he has to face them so early. And then his 3rd round opponent is probably Nick Kyrgios. Like, are you serious? Nick Kyrgios, who just beat Dimitrov, the number 3 player in the world, at Brisbane in the semifinals, won Brisbane, and he's at home. He's probably like feeling his oats. And I can't really...
Hold up. Chad, CC Smooth, used that expression to me the other day. It was the first time I'd ever heard it. I know you're using it now.
Yeah, well, I think it's from Drag Race.
I swear I'd never heard it before.
Do you remember Gia? That really Gia annoying one? Yeah. She used that, and I think she was incorrectly trying to say sowing my wild oats. But she was saying I'm feeling my oats. Anyway. Nick is feeling himself. That's the point.
Okay.
So Tsonga unfortunately has a tough little road here just to get to the round of 16. And then he would have to face Grigor if he makes it there. Or Andrei Rublev, who was a quarterfinalist at the US Open. So everybody in that little area has a much harder road than Jack Sock. Let me point out another first round match that's intriguing is Ferrer and Rublev. Ferrer just made the semifinals.
Where? Auckland or Hobart,
yeah,
one of the 2.
Auckland. Because that's where actually Roberto Bautista Agut just beat Juan Martín del Potro. It was a huge win for him.
Yeah.
And winning a title right before the Australian Open. Okay, let's get into this 3rd quarter. Because I think it's a lot worse than you do. So we got Dominic Thiem and Sasha Zverev, the 4 and 5 seeds in the same quarter, which does not always happen. And then you have 2 former champions in Djokovic and Wawrinka and Gael Monfils, who just won a title. So this is really, really stacked. And to me, it's not looking good for Dominic or Sasha, who by seed, by rights, should make it on through.
I think I'm looking at it from the perspective of not really expecting much from either of them because of how they've disappointed in the past.
Who?
Dominic and Zverev.
Oh, right.
At slams, Dominic with the exception being at the French Open in back-to-back years. What sucks here is for Novak. If you're a Novak fan, he has to play Donald Young in the first round and then potentially Gael Monfils in the second round.
Right.
And Gael looks like he is revamped and ready. We've talked about this. And moving past that, if Nole is able to get through that, he potentially then has to play Zverev in the 4th round, and then either Thiem or Bautista Agut or Stan in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So for me, Djokovic is the one who really has the shitty draw here.
Okay. Of course, the whole tennis world was talking about this at the end of last year, where these big time, where the big 5 would fall in the seedings when they came back. Now, a friendly reminder that Roger Federer won the Australian Open last year as the 17 seed. He faced a very tough road, and he got through.
And the 17 seed this year is Mr. Nick Kyrgios.
Oh, okay. My point being, Roger was coming back from an injury, like a few of these guys. He's a former champion, like Djokovic and Wawrinka. It is not impossible that Djokovic or Wawrinka will win this tournament. I think Djokovic is probably more likely of the two.
Yeah, but Federer wasn't pressing his medic alert button every few minutes like these guys have been in January.
Yes, he did. I mean, I was surprised that Djokovic admitted publicly that he was feeling elbow pain at the beginning of this month, which is, what? Not even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And I don't know if his abbreviated service motion is a direct short-term response to that, and if he will then elongate it again once
I don't know.
He starts to feel more secure in his elbow. But for now, he has a much abbreviated service motion.
I mean, Sharapova changed hers permanently because of the shoulder, the chronic shoulder injuries. Yeah. But there's also RBA who would, seeded to face Stan in the 4th round.
He also plays Verdasco
the third round. Oh, yeah. Verdasco, who just lost to Alex de Minaur.
Let's get to him. Right? Let's move to the other.
Okay.
Let me get this right. The next quarter of the bottom half.
Yes.
How is that?
The 4th quarter.
Yeah. And this is the 4th quarter of the episode. Very apt.
Okay. Leading it off, David Goffin, number 7 seed. And all the way at the bottom of the draw is Roger Federer, up from number 17 last year to number 2 seed.
And save for having to possibly play Del Potro in the quarterfinals, who is his own personal bugaboo in recent years.
Yeah.
It's a fairly palatable draw for Fed.
There's
up until that point.
There's Whipping Boy Gasquet, Milos Raonic, maybe Sam Querrey, and Sam Querrey has to play Lopez in the 1st round, or Lopez has to play Querrey. I don't know how you want to look at that.
And somebody has to watch it.
I'll watch Feliciano. But we were talking about what if Querrey and Raonic have to play a 3rd round?
Lord.
Like, who is what? Do you think they're going to put that on, like, one of the practice courts?
No, if that happens...
Who's watching that?
Well, I was going to make a quip, but we actually do get fairly good slam coverage here in Canada, so we could watch it on a different channel.
Unfortunately, no, it'll be on every channel because Milos is playing.
We'd make alternate plans that night. Yeah. Berdych opens against Wunderkind Alex de Minaur, who is taking the tennis world by storm.
This kid, will not stop winning.
No. Can't stop, won't stop.
And now he's in the final in Sydney against Medvedev. So this kid, loves playing for Australian crowds, is on a roll. Tomas Berdych is old. I mean, he's probably still younger than us, unfortunately, but
listen,
he is old.
He just won tiebreak 10s, okay? He just collected 200.
Is it tiebreak 10s or 10s?
Well, if they wanted me to say tennis, they should have spelt it like tennis. So as far as I'm concerned, it's tiebreak 10s.
I have heard players say tiebreak 10s.
Well, they play tiebreaks up to 10. That's where it comes from.
I see.
Win by 2.
Do you realize how little attention I've paid to tiebreak 10s?
Okay, you do you. Berdych, we don't know what to expect from him. That's the bottom line. De Minaur, he'll be just outside the top 100 should he win against Medvedev in Sydney. We do not want to put too much onto folks when they're young, but this is exciting.
There's Karen Khachanov, who very politely pronounced his name for us, so we could sound like we knew what we're talking about. He called you? Oh, yeah. We talked.
Oh.
His name is Karen Khachanov.
We knew this, didn't we?
No, we thought we were saying Khachanov.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, he would be like a second round opponent for Del Potro. I was surprised to see that Khachanov was not seeded. He must be very close, right?
One would think, yeah. Del Potro gets Tiafoe in the first round. You say Khachanov in the...
Not I say.
In the second round.
All of Russia says.
And then Delpo either plays Berdik, Deminar, or Benoit Paire in the third round. Paire, who just went deep in Sydney as well.
Did he go deep?
Why resist those base urges, okay?
I was referencing the Janet Jackson song from the from the late 90s, from Velvet Rope.
And do you also not get any sleep? Because you'll be up all night.
What was I going to say? Medvedev opens against the Kokkinakis.
Oh my God.
What else? Oh, we didn't talk about there's a potential Zverev brother matchup in the third round, which is obviously very intriguing if it happens.
You know what? That is my one wish for this tournament, for that to happen and for Misha to just fucking clock him. That's what I want.
Right, but Misha has to play Chung in the first round, and that is no guarantee.
I'll sacrifice that breakout prediction for Misha to go do that.
I'm just saying that Chung is in form and could spoil that party.
But that is a sucky draw for Kokkinakis. Truly.
Well, yeah. Okay. I think we're done. We're pretty much done with the draw analysis, right?
Yeah.
Was there any analysis?
No, we're just really talking about stuff, I guess. I think what people want when they say, oh, you didn't do a draw analysis, like they want predictions as well.
I know.
Which it's like the least interesting thing for us.
We're not really going to do.
Like, why would you want to put yourself out there looking stupid? So, bold-faced about it. Yeah. Is there anything prediction-wise you want to say? I think the one thing I said was Cibulkova Coco will make the quarterfinals. Or the semis.
Oh, yeah. That was a very bold prediction. I made the much more conservative prediction in saying that Svitolina or Woz will win.
The tournament?
Yes. The whole thing.
Okay. We should learn by now not to discount Venus Williams. And if the court is fast, watch out. If the court is fast, she's serving well, there's no reason why she can't go very far again.
And like Monfils, she has had an about face with regard to her social media.
Yes.
She's much more active. It seems like she's actually posting personally. And she's released some great Instagram stories.
It would be a crying shame if Venus and that hair did not get more play in Melbourne. Because she is looking...
She's got long braids right now,
Yeah, she's looking all of that right now.
Okay, so there are a few odds and ends that we want to end with.
A follow-up to something we talked about on a previous episode, last episode in fact, Simona Halep has secured a sponsorship. She is now with Nike. She signed, according to Jose Morgado, she signed for 4 years at $1.7 million per year, purportedly up from $1 million a year with Adidas.
So I think it seems what happened is that Adidas had Muguruza and her, and they weren't really willing to spend more money on her, basically.
They essentially put their eggs into Muguruza's basket.
Yeah. She asked for $2 million, got 1.7. It's still a big upgrade. It's not like Adidas was doing anything.
How do you know she asked for $2 million?
That's what was reported.
Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah. It's not like Adidas was doing anything exciting with the clothes. But guaranteed Nike won't either, so...
No.
So get that money. Serena in Vogue, hello. You know, the world is talking about Serena all the time when she's not playing. She is the sport's biggest superstar. This Vogue piece was much more revealing than I expected. And there were a lot of rumors about how she had some difficulties after giving birth. Nobody really knew exactly what was going on. And it's not like it's our business. And of course, Patrick was running his mouth about how, the birth was a lot more difficult than you all think. So that's why she's not going to play the Australian. It's like, thank you so much, Patrick. But she revealed quite a bit to the reporter who came to her home. Unfortunately, the pulmonary embolisms were back. Blood clots is what she was most afraid of after giving birth, and they did come back. She knew exactly what to do. She knew what to tell the doctors. You know, just a lot of scary, scary shit happened after the birth, which we also confirmed was a C-section, and there were complications from that because of her medical history.
We confirmed?
Well, she confirmed.
We got...
But to see her on the court at the end of December is just amazing to me. That she was even in okay enough shape to play an exhibition.
And Oracene was interviewed giving her pearls of wisdom. Standing for discipline.
Yes. Representing strictness and obedience.
She's saying that obedience, quote, obedience brings protection.
Which Serena says is in the Bible. I don't know where, but I believe her.
She says she heard from Sveta, Kerber, Caroline during her time out, her time away from the court. Mm-hmm. What did she do during her time off?
Simona was referred to as Serena's friend, Simona Halep, the number one player. Mm. And Serena said she was interested to see what would happen at the top of the game while she was out. And she's like, if it so happened that there was a clear number one, cool, 'cause I'm going to come for you. And I love that she's sitting at home, she's still not fully healthy, she's recovering from the birth, and she's got this fire. She wants to come back and assert herself because she said she believes the number one is her place, it's her domain, and she wants it back. So that excites me as a fan.
She also said that the women in Billie Jean King's day supported each other even though they competed fiercely. We've got to do that. That's kind of the mark I want to leave. Play each other hard, but keep growing the sport. Which is very much Serena 2.0 or 3.0 or 4.0. Mm-hmm. Because this is not the Serena Williams who created that iconic moment at Dinara Safina's expense in that press conference, right? That is not uplifting other women in sport.
That was, at this point, a long time ago.
It was. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's part of the evolution and emancipation of RiRi.
of course, you're going to bring
emancipation
it back
of Reno. Yeah.
Yeah. Billie Jean has clearly anointed Serena as a singular figure in women's tennis.
Billie Jean has said that recently. Right. She said, I specifically want to pass the torch to Serena. Mm-hmm. And she feels like she's the person who has that cultural reach to do the work.
Mm-hmm. And has potential to have an even broader reach than Billie Jean King herself did. Mm-hmm. Because she's, Serena is bridging communities together.
It's not just that black people create the culture. We've seen this.
Well, yeah.
Over and over and over again throughout American cultural history. And she is that bitch who caused all that conversation. Can I say that?
I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. If we hear from Oracene.
But she's a tastemaker. She is a cultural icon. She's an influencer. And when she says something and makes the determined effort to attack something and tackle something like she did with turning her return to Indian Wells on its head with the Equal Justice Initiative, mm-hmm. right? She can bring so many more people and issues into the fold. She is, in effect, like Billie Jean thinks she could run for president if she wants to, which is a bit far-fetched, but she functions as a politician in a way, mm-hmm. because of all the venues at her disposal, because of who she is and who she chooses to be and who she works to be now actively in ways that she didn't in the past.
And this is the groundwork that Richard and Oracene did. That
Venus did.
Well, this is where I'm bringing it to, that she and Venus are Renaissance women, that they have such varied interests. Serena is kind of a nerd, she's into the tech world so much. She's working in this organization with Billie Jean to fund sort of tech projects from women of color and people who don't often get the opportunities in these fields, right? The fact that she is a nerd makes her even more powerful because she has interests that go beyond sport and fashion, right? Mm-hmm. It's not just tastemaking, it's people who actually drive innovation too.
Yeah. There was a period where folks were unwilling to accept the public image and current iteration of Serena as reformed, quote unquote reformed, as to what she needs to be reformed from is a fraught and coded loaded thing, right?
Yeah.
But that was what was being presented. That, oh, well, look, that time when she tried to kill somebody on court, and that time when she was being like a mean black bitch, like, that's the best way I can describe it. You know, like, there was this image of her that was stuck in so many, let's be frank, white people's mind's eye for years. And
they were scared.
yeah, and we are finally, I think, having that reckoning that's catching up to a Serena that's been long changed or evolved.
Yeah, evolved is better.
Is better, yes.
Because this Serena has been in the making
for a long time.
Since the beginning.
Yes. I don't want to give credence to like some of those arguments, but I'm just saying that it is a different Serena. It's natural that people evolve and grow as they get older.
She's grown.
She's grown. But there is strength in acknowledging that growth as well, and that there was something that Serena would do now is not something that she would do as a GOAT 25-year-old of her time.
Right.
You know, she's a grown GOAT. You're just so on the defensive for anything negative about Serena.
We have to stay vigilant. We really do.
Even within our household.
I'm quick to check a bitch. Are you that bitch? Do you know what that's from?
I didn't know she sang. I thought she rapped or whatever.
Anyway, look. We're going really long again.
It's still shorter than the last time. Yeah. If we wrap it up right now.
So 2018 is not the year of brevity, apparently.
No.
Not on the Body Serve release. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We're super excited about the Australian Open. Reach out to us about just any little old thing that catches your fancy.
We are here for you. We're giving ourselves to you in 2018.
Find us at The Body Serve on Twitter and Instagram. Find me, James, at ElliotJMR on Twitter.
And you can find us at 123 Oldstown Crescent.
What? What the hell? What?
I'm pretending to give us our address.
Yeah, okay. What's your Twitter handle?
It's tennis_John.
All right. Find us on iTunes, your favorite podcast catcher. We're there.
Tell your friends and family about us.
Thanks for listening.
Till next time.